The sun hung low over the endless dunes of Aridara, painting the sky with streaks of orange and violet. The wind blew hot, carrying grains of sand that cut at anyone who dared cross the open desert without proper protection. Jackson Kane, a human known across the frontier as Cowboy, adjusted the strap of his worn leather pack and squinted toward the horizon. His plasma-powered hoverhorse, a sleek machine built for speed over rough terrain, hummed quietly beneath him, its engines tuned perfectly for the challenges of Aridara. He had heard the signal an hour ago, a weak distress call from a Varelian village tucked deep in the southern dunes. The voice of a young girl had been frightened but clear. Help. Please, someone help me. Jackson did not hesitate. Rescue missions were dangerous, but he had a reputation to uphold. Lives were precious, and he had seen too many die because someone had waited. He spurred the hoverhorse forward, its anti-gravity pads kicking up clouds of sand that trailed behind him like golden smoke. By the time he reached the coordinates, the scene was chaos. The raiders' camp was small, but it had been fortified with advanced alien tech, energy barriers, automated turrets, and motion sensors designed to catch even the most skilled intruders. Jackson studied the setup, noting weak points and patrol patterns. He smirked. Nothing humans haven't handled before, he muttered, his eyes scanning for the girl. Hours later, after careful navigation and a few clever distractions, he had found her. Lyra, the youngest of 4 Varelian sisters, was huddled in a corner of a high-tech cage, her violet eyes wide with fear. Jackson opened the lock with a simple device he carried, bypassing security protocols the raiders had assumed were unbreakable. "You're safe now," he whispered, gently lifting her into his arms. She clung to him without hesitation, and he could feel the tension in her small frame. Returning to the village was not simple. Raiders had realized she was missing and sent a group after him. Jackson's hoverhorse leapt over dunes and skimmed across cliffs, dodging plasma shots and debris. He ducked, rolled, and fired back with non-lethal stun rounds, disabling the raiders without killing them. By the time he reached the village, the sun had disappeared entirely, leaving a cold twilight over the sand. The villagers gathered quickly, a mix of fear, relief, and curiosity in their eyes. The Varelian elders emerged, their robes flowing in the evening breeze, their posture commanding. The eldest among them, a tall woman with silver streaks in her dark hair, stepped forward. "You have done what no one else could," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You saved Lyra, the youngest of the 4 sisters." Jackson nodded, setting Lyra down gently. "Just did my job," he said, though he noticed the strange looks from the villagers. There was a weight to their gaze, a reverence he didn't expect. The eldest's eyes softened as she continued. "By our sacred law, the one who saves the youngest daughter is bound to marry all 4 sisters. It is not a punishment. It is honor. It is trust. It ensures the protection and continuity of our family." Jackson froze. "Marry all 4? He repeated, trying to process the words. His mind raced. Sacred laws, marriage customs, alien traditions. He had dealt with unusual cultures before, but this was beyond anything he had imagined. Lyra clung to his leg, looking up at him with innocent eyes. "He saved me," she said softly. "He's my hero." The elders nodded. "You must accept, or our honor is compromised. But we do not demand love. You must show courage, wisdom, and respect. The sisters themselves will judge you." Jackson swallowed. His human mind struggled to reconcile the gravity of the situation. He had expected danger, action, maybe gratitude, but not this. Still looking into Lyra's trusting eyes, he knew he could not refuse, not when the smallest life depended on him. Over the next few days, Jackson met the other sisters. Serena, the eldest, was stern and calculated with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Talia, the second sister, had an energy and intensity that reminded him of a wild stallion, always moving, always observing. Kayla, the third, carried a quiet dignity, speaking with thought and intent, her gaze filled with curiosity and intelligence. Each sister had her own personality, her own talents, and her own way of viewing the world. Jackson realized that winning their trust would not be simple. It would require more than courage. It would require understanding, empathy, and skill. The first challenge came sooner than he expected. The clan elders presented him with a simulation designed to test his judgment and problem-solving skills. He had to navigate a virtual desert storm, rescuing holographic villagers while avoiding traps that could harm them. Jackson approached it like any mission: analyze, plan, act. He found ways to outsmart the system, creating diversions and using the environment to his advantage. When the simulation ended, Serena's eyes reflected surprise and respect. "Perhaps you are not as reckless as we feared," she said. Talia, however, was skeptical. "Skill in simulations does not prove loyalty or courage in the field. We will see if you survive what is real." Kayla smiled faintly. "I see promise. Let us hope it is more than promise alone." Jackson spent the following days learning more about Varelian life. He trained with Talia, learning their martial techniques and tactics, discovering that his human ingenuity could adapt surprisingly well. With Serena, he discussed strategy, sharing human frontier experiences, and she began to see the value in his unconventional thinking. Kayla taught him diplomacy and negotiation, showing how humans could bridge cultural gaps that even Varelians struggled with. Evenings were quieter. Jackson would sit with Lyra, listening to her stories about her dreams, fears, and the desert they called home. She told him about her sister's hopes, and he began to understand the weight of the sacred law, not as obligation, but as a bond that united them all. He realized that the law was designed to ensure that trust, honor, and courage were not just words, but lived experiences. One night, the tranquility was shattered. Raiders returned, this time larger and more organized. Their goal was clear: reclaim Lyra and punish the clan for daring to resist. Jackson led the village in preparation. He organized defenses, taught villagers improvised tactics, and coordinated with the sisters to strengthen their fortifications. When the raiders attacked at dawn, Jackson was ready. Plasma shots streaked through the sky. Sand erupted in clouds, and the village's defenders held firm. Jackson fought alongside the sisters, seeing firsthand their unique abilities. Serena coordinated squads with unmatched precision. Talia engaged in direct combat with ferocity. Kayla worked to negotiate surrender for captured raiders, and Lyra, though young, helped evacuate the elderly and weak to safe zones. Jackson marveled at their competence and bravery. His own human skills complemented theirs perfectly: quick thinking, adaptive strategies, and courage in the face of danger. By the time the raiders were defeated, the village was safe. Jackson, exhausted and covered in sand and sweat, looked around at the sisters standing proudly beside him. Their eyes held a mixture of relief, admiration, and challenge. The elders approached, nodding solemnly. "You have proven yourself," the eldest said, "not just to us but to the law itself. You have earned the right to be part of this family, to honor us with your courage and loyalty." Jackson exhaled. He felt a weight lift from his shoulders, but also realized the journey had only begun. Accepting the sacred law meant more than surviving battles. It meant forging bonds, understanding alien culture, and proving every day that human ingenuity and honor could thrive even among the stars. Lyra ran up to him, hugging his leg. "You stayed," she said, smiling through tears. "You didn't run away." Jackson knelt, returning her embrace. "I wouldn't leave. Not you. Not your sisters, not this family." In that moment, under the fading light of Aridara's twin moons, Jackson understood something profound. Humans were capable of more than survival. They could inspire trust, unite worlds, and become heroes even where no one expected it. He had come to rescue a child, but he found himself standing at the threshold of a new life, one filled with challenges, honor, and perhaps a bond stronger than anything he had ever known. The desert wind whispered across the dunes, carrying a promise of trials yet to come. Jackson knew that the days ahead would test him in ways he had never imagined. Each sister represented a new challenge, a new opportunity to prove that humanity could stand among the stars with courage, wisdom, and heart. And for the first time in a long while, Cowboy Kane smiled. Whatever came next, he would face it. Because humans were not just survivors, they were heroes, even on alien worlds. The morning sun rose over Aridara, casting long shadows across the dunes. Jackson Kane stood at the edge of the village, watching the desert stretch endlessly before him. After the raid, he had thought the worst was over, but the elders had reminded him that saving Lyra was only the beginning. If he truly wanted to honor the sacred law, he would have to prove himself worthy of each sister. And that meant facing challenges that would test not just his courage, but his mind, his heart, and his humanity. The first trial came unexpectedly. The elders guided him and the sisters to a canyon known as the Glass Teeth, a jagged stretch of desert cliffs that shimmered with mineral deposits. "Here you will demonstrate your ability to survive and lead," the eldest said. "It is not enough to fight. You must protect, guide, and adapt." Jackson glanced at the sisters. Serena's sharp eyes measured every step. Talia's muscles flexed, ready for action. Kayla's calm gaze gave nothing away, and Lyra clung lightly to his arm, trusting him completely. He inhaled deeply. Humans had survived deserts on their own worlds before. They had faced dangers worse than these cliffs. It was time to show that humanity's strength could thrive here too. The trial began with a sudden rockfall. Jackson shouted warnings as massive boulders tumbled down the canyon. He used his hover horse's agility to dodge debris while directing the sisters to safer ledges. Talia reacted instinctively, using her combat training to push herself and Jackson clear of falling rocks. Serena calculated the safest paths, guiding the team with precision. Kayla stayed close to Lyra, ensuring the young girl was never out of sight. Jackson realized then that their skills complemented each other perfectly, and his human ingenuity, quick thinking, improvising, and coordinating allowed them to survive without a scratch. By the end of the canyon trial, the elders nodded with approval. "You do not only survive, but you lead. You are proving that humanity can rise to the challenge of our world." Jackson allowed himself a brief smile, but he knew more tests awaited. Days passed, and Jackson grew closer to the sisters. With Serena, he studied advanced strategies, learning to combine human tactics with Varelian precision. With Talia, he trained physically, improving his combat skills while learning the unique martial style of her people. Kayla taught him the intricacies of Varelian diplomacy, negotiation, and how to read subtle signals of trust or deceit. And with Lyra, he shared stories of human frontier life, teaching her small tricks for survival, all while deepening their bond. One evening, a messenger arrived from a distant clan, bearing urgent news. A group of raiders had allied with a rival Varelian faction and was moving to attack the village. This time the threat was larger, more organized, and the outcome uncertain. Jackson did not hesitate. He gathered the sisters and the elders, mapping out a plan that combined human unpredictability with Varelian precision. The battle began at dawn. Raiders swarmed the village with advanced weaponry, but Jackson anticipated their movements. He set traps, organized defensive positions, and led squads in coordinated strikes. The sisters fought fiercely by his side. Serena led counterattacks with tactical brilliance. Talia engaged the enemy head-on with unmatched agility. Kayla negotiated surrenders where possible, and Lyra assisted in evacuating vulnerable villagers. Jackson moved through the battlefield like a shadow, using human ingenuity to turn the tide. He rerouted energy shields, manipulated terrain, and exploited weaknesses in the raiders' armor. Time and again, he saved the sisters from dangerous situations, each act earning their trust and admiration. By sunset, the raiders had been defeated and the village stood victorious. That evening, the elders held a private ceremony. "You have faced danger, guided our people, and earned the respect of each sister," the eldest said. "By sacred law, you are now bound to our family, not as a servant or a prisoner, but as one who honors us and earns honor in return." Jackson bowed his head. He had anticipated challenges, but this acknowledgement carried a weight he had not expected. The sisters approached him one by one. Serena's eyes, sharp yet warm, met his. "You have shown your mind and courage. I trust you." Talia, her energy subdued but fierce, nodded. "You fight not only for yourself, but for us all. I accept you." Kayla's gaze was steady, filled with quiet intelligence. "You have earned understanding and respect. I welcome your presence among us." Lyra smiled brightly, holding his hand. "I knew you were my hero," she said. Jackson realized then that the sacred law was more than tradition. It was a bond, forged through courage, trust, and shared experiences. It was not merely about marriage. It was about forming a family, a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding. He felt a sense of fulfillment he had never known in his solitary life. Over the following weeks, Jackson continued to integrate into Varelian society. He accompanied Serena on exploration missions, learning to navigate treacherous terrain and uncover hidden resources. He sparred with Talia, refining combat techniques that combined human improvisation with Varelian discipline. He assisted Kayla in mediating disputes with neighboring clans, using human insight to bridge gaps that had existed for generations. And he spent time with Lyra, nurturing her growth, curiosity, and confidence. Through it all, Jackson's humanity shone. He respected Varelian customs, learned their language, and adapted to their way of life. Yet he brought a unique perspective that enhanced their society. Where the sisters saw limitations, he saw possibilities. Where they hesitated, he acted with decisiveness rooted in experience. And through every challenge, he earned not just their trust, but their friendship, admiration, and respect. One night, as the twin moons rose over the dunes, Jackson sat with the sisters on a high cliff overlooking the village. The wind was cool, carrying the scent of desert flora and distant water. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. Jackson realized that what had begun as obligation had transformed into genuine connection. He cared for each sister not as a duty, but as part of a family he had chosen and who had chosen him in return. The elders joined them, nodding in approval. "You have fulfilled the law," the eldest said, "not because it demanded it, but because you embodied its meaning. Courage, honor, and humanity are the greatest gifts, and you have shown them in abundance." Jackson felt a surge of pride, but more than that, he felt belonging. The next day, the village celebrated. Humans and Varelians danced together, shared meals, and recounted tales of heroism. Jackson watched the sisters move among their people, confident and strong, each in her own way a testament to the union of human and Varelian strengths. He realized that this bond, formed in the desert and tested in battle, would endure. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of gold and purple, Jackson stood with the sisters on the highest dune, looking out across the endless desert. "We've faced danger, learned from each other, and survived," he said. "But this is just the beginning. There's a whole galaxy out there, and I think we're ready to face it. Together." Serena smiled. "With you, we can face anything." Talia nodded, fists raised in determination. Kayla's calm eyes met his, filled with trust and hope. Lyra, smallest but most spirited, hugged his arm. "Let's go," she said, "and see what's out there." Jackson laughed, a sound full of relief and excitement. Humanity had always thrived on the frontier, and now, on an alien world, he had found purpose, family, and honor. The sacred law, once a daunting obligation, had become a path to connection, courage, and a future filled with possibilities. Together, they mounted the hover horse, the engines humming like a promise. The desert stretched before them, vast and unknown, but Jackson knew that with courage, ingenuity, and trust they could overcome any challenge. Humanity had survived in the harshest conditions, and now it would shine among the stars, not as conquerors but as heroes, partners, and friends. And so Cowboy Kane, who had once been a lone wanderer, rode into the future with the 4 Varelian sisters at his side, ready to face adventures that would test their strength, their bond, and their very humanity. The galaxy awaited, and together they would meet it head-on.